Welcome to another interview in our CEO series here on Learn, Grow, Invest. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Mrs. Kisha Anderson from Image Plus Consultants Limited, otherwise known as Apex. So we're going to be going through the prospectus that is out right now for their initial public offer, ask some of the questions that you or community members submitted, and there are some questions that we would have had coming out of our prospectus review and financial review. I'll talk a little bit more about those videos in a second, but welcome. I hope you enjoy this discussion. It's one that we've been looking forward to for a couple of days now from we saw the prospectus last week, Friday. So if you're new here, this is what we do every time there's an initial public offer out or an APO or a rights issue or just about any public offer that exists. We try to educate our community members so that you can make an informed investment decision. So it's not for us to tell you what to do, but to provide you with the information so that you can decide along with your financial advisor on the best way forward. So let us jump right into things.
Learning is the key to successful investing. And who doesn't want to invest in some way?
Here at L.E.A.R.N. Grow Invest, we focus on financial education, all with the aim of sharing our knowledge on personal finance, investing, and building wealth. We do this on the foundation of our faith in God.
If a more holistic approach is what you need, check out our Grow Faith-based financial coaching program.
Find out more about us at learngrowinvestclub.com
and follow us on all social media platforms at Learn, Grow, Invest.
Great, welcome back. So let us pray. Thank you, Lord, for this day and for the ability to produce wealth. Lord, we thank you that we have everything that we need in you. And I pray, Lord, that you will be with us during this conversation. May it be one that is enriching to our viewers and that they will learn and be able to make wise investment decisions. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay. It's good to see everyone here. I was very, very concerned about the time, so close to Christmas, but it's good to see everyone here. I'm very happy that you have, decided to be here with us. We're streaming on all platforms, so feel free to share it on your respective platforms. I wanted to just recap what we have covered this week for this IPO. So we've done the prospectus review on Monday, I believe it is, and would have gone through a high-level summary of the offer, how much is being raised, what the share price is, things like that, everything that you'd need to know at a very high level. On Tuesday, we did a deep dive into the financials. We looked at the last 5 years. We identified some questions that we would have for Kisha to ask her today. So we'll get to those. And then today you're seeing the interview. Well, you're part of the interview now that we are about to begin. So start posting your questions. We're going to get through as many as we can. It is a finite amount of time, so be sure to ask your questions early. I want to ask you from now to just like the video. That's something that we always ask you to do. It helps us grow our community. So I want to ask you to join me in welcoming Mrs. Kisha Anderson. Hi, Kisha. How are you?
I'm good, Jeremy. Good evening to you and to the whole community. I must say, When you started the intro, you started to scare me when you said, we have the financial questions. We're waiting for Kisha. I'm like, oh.
Well, so what we do when we go through the prospectus is, as we're going through it, because we do it live, we ask the questions real time. So we're like, well, this is not clear to us. This may need some further insight. And so we take note of those and then we plan to go through them in our interview. So
very admirable. It's admirable.
Yes, exactly. So we'll go through a very specific format, and I'll share for those who are watching a flow of questions. So we're going to talk at a high level about the company, get an idea as to what you do, what you offer. We're going to ask you a little bit about your journey to CEO, etc. Then we'll talk about your products and services. There are some terms that we may need to understand there. We'll go into next the IPO and everything that comes with that, how you plan to use the money, etc. Then we'll talk about the financials for a little bit for the last 5 years and some of the questions that we had there. And then we close out with growth plans, how you plan to grow the company over the next few years. And then we'll have had questions that were submitted by our community members, and we'll get through as many of those as we can. So it's a very It's a format that works for us. So I wanted to ask you for our audience to introduce Image Plus Consultants Limited.
Okay, so Image Plus Consultants Limited, the market would know as Apex Radiology, started in 1996 in February. And it really was, as I hear Dr. McDonough, who is one of the co-founders, describe it, the idea at Mullines Road was that doctors came together with independent companies and they recognized the need to have an imaging practice. And she was approached as somebody who they thought they would want to work with. And at the time, she reached out to Dr. L.E.A.R.N. Bridgewater, and together they took the leap of faith with other early investors, Dr. Gordon Bradshaw, and I think not Doctor, I think his name was, oh my gosh, it's going to slip me this very important moment, Curtis. I can't remember his last name now, I apologize for that. And they actually started the company. And they started with one location here in Halfway Tree because they thought the location was attractive. It actually would make a difference for the average Jamaican, and
Yes,
it was easy to get to. And then the company, from that point on, because they're so committed to things like quality reporting and easy access. So, you know, your primary doctor will refer you to get ultrasound or x-ray, that kind of thing. But that primary doctor may want to talk to the radiologist who's reading the report and get information from them or talk about whatever. So even though they write a report, they may want to talk about the findings. And one thing that people take pride or appreciate, and our radiologists take pride in, is that they're easily accessible, so they can actually talk to the doctors. So because of that, the quality of the reports, ease of access, and the fact that we're affordable and committed to patient care, both patients who come to us from the private system as well as the public system, we have enjoyed the benefit of getting referrals over the years and continue to grow to now have 4 locations, 3 in Kingston and 1 in St. Anne. His name is Clyde Cunningham. Somebody just slipped me the paper. God bless Mrs. Constantine. And
That's awesome.
the thing about him, why it was important to mention him though, is because he at the time owned a company called Meditron that they supplied the machines that we use, the X-ray machines, etc. And so him coming and being a partner, I think he offered his services for free, which starting up as a small company would have been very important in the early days.
Yes, yes, indeed. Okay, so thank you so much for that background. And when we're going through the prospectus, we really could see a focus on just quality of service, you know, being able to do good and things of that nature. So it really came out in your explanation just now. How do you make money as a company?
Okay, so it's very simple. Patients come in with referral forms, and we charge for their services. And those, what we charge, we have to pay our staff, and we pay our utilities, and we pay for the supplies that we use. Because some of the things that we do, some of the CT scans use different what would I call it now? What they call imaging or medical or supplies, and those supplies come out of that revenue. We collect some of our money in cash, so the person pays cash, we may pay using a credit card, and then a chunk of our money is collected if persons have insurance, and the insurance company has a co-pay, pays a portion of it, or the insurance company pays all of it. And we do have patients that are sent to us from the Ministry of Health where they may actually be covering the full cost of it. And in that case, the insurance and the Ministry of Health will be what we call credit customers that we have to then collect for after the patient receives their services. So we make money by ensuring that our appointments are booked as best as they can be, and our machines are always up and working.
Yes, thank you. So we'll get to that
A little
the
bit.
credit, and we'll get to that a little bit later. Thank you
Sure.
for that. So a little bit about you before we continue. Tell us about your journey to being the CEO of this company. When I was doing research, I found that you were with a financial institution before. So what would that, you know, transition be like?
Okay, all right. So Jermaine, anybody that knows me will tell you that I still don't know what I want to be when I grow big. I'm a lifelong learner. I have many interests. Whatever I'm doing, I give it my all 100%. but I really am attracted to entities where I feel that there is a purpose and a mission bigger than our individual selves, you know. And so I started a financial company. I was there for over 23 years. There was a major goal that I wanted to achieve, and I wanted to see that happen. I was tired, to be honest. I said I was going to retire, but I said, "You're going to retire at this young age?" I say, "Yes, I'm going to retire and enjoy my life." Who say you have to work all your life?
Wow.
And that was in March
Good.
2019. And I said I was going to go to the beach every day, which I love to do. And then by about month 4, I was like, I can't go to the beach every day. And
That my
actually, it
wife
was
would
not
disagree. My wife would be at the beach every day.
until she had it to do, because that's all I said I want to do, you know. And I had it to do. I was like, okay, my brain needs to work. But I actually, some things happen in life that are just made to happen because I wasn't
Yeah.
looking for Image Plus. And I got a call from Dr. McDonough one evening. I remember distinctly where I was. And she asked me if I could help her to look for a CEO. And then I don't know how the conversation got. So, okay, maybe I can see how I can offer some
I'm
services.
free.
Yeah, and then the rest is history. I came in January 2020. But how I look on it is that I have skills and things that I think I can contribute. And I thought the purpose and the mission of Image Plus in terms of offering healthcare services to Jamaicans and really augmenting what is offered in the public system would actually make a difference. And I saw where my skills and the strengths that I bring could work with the strengths of the team that existed and help them to unearth this diamond that they have.
Great. And I really did notice a difference. Though we were in a pandemic for the last 2 years, it seems like the company would have gone through this great transformation as well, in terms of, realizing in the last financial year the greatest revenue, profitability, number of scans done, etc. Tell us about what went into that sort of transformation over the last 2 years.
Okay, so also I think what happened is that the team just needed to have been built out because the doctors know what they're doing, and I would dare to say that they are some of the best that are there in the business. So we have a good mix in our team. We have radiologists who have been radiologists for over 25 years, and then we
Wow.
have radiologists who have been radiologists within the last 10 years. So we have a good balance of experience and wisdom with new experience, and that we can have active working together to ensure that our business there is the succession planning is actually in force.
Yes.
Right, which is really good. With that in place, and we look at our team. We have we not many entities have their own biomed and IT personnel, and we have a member of our team who was with Meditron with Mr. Cunningham back then, Anthony Grizzle, and it's a good thing to have him. It's a blessing in that if something happens with one of the piece of equipment, he's here on site to be able to do the first level of analysis. So we, in the last couple of years, just looked at the strengths of all of our team members. I added and complemented that with the business side of it. And we looked at every aspect of our business and recognized that what we wanted to do, we needs to ensure that our machine uptime was always maximized. So we had some pieces of equipment that were older, and I was able to show the board how that investing in new equipment would ensure that we're always able to deliver the service for some of our locations. It's hard sometimes when you're a doctor to that leap of faith. This is big expenditure, but I was able to show them if we do that and increase the number of scans, we actually can pay for that machine within a 3-year period. So
Nice.
having our machines there, having our machines serviced properly as they should be, ahead of time and not just reacting to when things broke down, ensure that we actually increased our uptime. And then we looked at our whole booking system, how we went along booking patients and our booking guidelines, and how we better prepare our patients. And we still have things that we can do there to improve, but how we better prepare our patients so they come ready for their procedure. And then we looked at our service. And the team here at Image Plus, one thing I can say about them, they're committed to their mission. I mean, really committed. It's a good mix of, again, younger people and some older people. We have team members who have been here for the entire journey. I can think of two, Patrick Brown and Joan Jackson, that they've been here the entire time and they're committed. And one thing I tell our team members, they're not only committed to like, okay, these are my tasks and I do them, but the patients. I mean, I have patients who have terminal illnesses and stop to take the time to call to commend a supervisor or somebody. We have real supervisors who excel there in customer service. So our customer service and our patient care is very important to us. So it's not just about a business and making money, although that's important. That's the part I will watch. But as I tell them every time we have staff meetings, that guys, we're making money, but we really are focused on the difference that we're making to lives, you know. So we've been able to just ensure in the last period that we got all of those elements right to be able to keep patients coming and ensure appointments are booked across all our locations. And then in some of our locations, we're able to offer more services. Like in Ocherous, we started in November. The real push of the branch manager there, Ramona, agreed to start now. So, you know, we have to start the on-call Kisha. And I'm like trying to dot every I and cross every T. And so we're starting tomorrow. And I'm like, okay. I tell them several of them are my boss too, right, Jermaine? And we start there. That would increase the number of patients that we see on a daily basis because then we extend the hours. So after the traditional close hour of 5 o'clock, we offer on-call services until midnight, Monday to Thursday. And then on the weekends, it's almost 24 hours because you recognize that things will happen and people need care. And especially in our public system where ambulance services, we don't have many ambulances. Sometimes it's easier for the hospitals to carry patients in the night to get their scans done. We can lead to a quicker diagnosis and get off the beds and get treated, and then the hospitals can accommodate more patients.
Wow, it sounds like real intentional, you know, practice in terms of wanting to provide the best service. One of the things I can say as someone who's had to go to the doctor, one of the things that we look for is to want to know that we are cared for, meaning it's important not just to provide the service, but to feel like you matter, right? Because that's probably the most vulnerable state you'll be in when you're not well. So you want to be cared for in a very meaningful way. So really, really happy to hear that.
And I think you don't even know what to expect. So sometimes it's just like an anxiety and apprehension about what to expect, you know.
Yes, exactly. Which I think we can all relate to, because if not us, then at least a loved one we've had to go to the doctor with, or we'll hear stories about it. So thank you so much for that. So help us to understand, your prospectus refers to the different types of scans or modalities, if you will. Just very briefly explain what that is. I know it's not a hard concept to understand, but for those who may not be aware, help us to understand what different modalities that you may focus on, and then we'll get into speaking about your prospectus mentioned interventional procedures. Can you just expound on that a little bit more?
Okay, all right. So we offer the different types of scans. They call them modalities. So we do X-rays, which, you know, if you want to look at your bone structure, radiation is involved. We do CT scans. We do ultrasounds. Most people know ultrasounds. If you expectant parents know ultrasounds to look at the health of your baby, but you do ultrasounds for other things as well. We do nuclear medicine services. So most times persons are diagnosed with something that could be terminal cancer or something else where you need to actually get some either radioiodine treatment, or you need to do a scan. That's called nuclear medicine services. We do fluoroscopy services. So, you know, people in Jamaica may be most familiar with like a barium meal or barium enema, you know, if you have any issues with digestion, that kind of thing, and they do it. But there's a whole slew of fluoroscopy studies. And then interventional now are studies that they use some of the same equipment, the CT, ultrasound guided, to actually do minor, they don't call them procedures or operations because it's still something to some kind of diagnostic scan, or to do things like put in a port. You know, you might hear people say they have to put in a port, or they need to do a biopsy, that kind of thing. And that is what that falls under interventional procedures. And that is relatively new in the field, being done a little bit more and more. A lot of times that is normally done in a hospital kind of setting, but if you have the right kind of interventional facilities, as we are building out here at Apex Radiology, then you're able to allow the patient to get diagnosed fast, so they don't have to incur the expenses of staying in a hospital overnight. You come in, you do your procedure, and you can also get your report and the diagnosis that is passed, or the information to pass on to your primary care physician to give you a diagnosis, or a specialist to give you a diagnosis.
Okay, so I take it that you're seeing that area as a great area of growth opportunity for you.
It's a great space. It is, because the cost is actually makes it more accessible to persons and going to the hospital. You free up very vital hospital bed space that we don't have enough of in Jamaica, and you get to do this when the person will actually have to stay in the hospital overnight. And also we have some of the I would dare to say the best in the field working with us and partnering with us to offer those services here at Apex Radiology.
Great, good stuff, good stuff. I mean, so I have an IT background, but I've always been fascinated with the medical field, but I
Yes.
won't allow myself to get caught. So in your perspective, so we're gonna talk about a little bit of the offer now. So you mentioned in the prospectus, and let me actually try to bring it up here for those who might have missed it. Just 1 second here. Your prospectus mentioned seeking to raise. Well, you're issuing 247 million new shares, and you also
Yes.
mentioned, of course, the different pools that are there. One of the questions that came in is if someone is a referring doctor, how do they know? How are they able to identify themselves? Someone actually messaged me about it. Can you explain specifically the key stakeholder pool? I think every other pool is pretty straightforward. But for
Sure.
someone who is a referral doctor, how would they be able to identify themselves?
Boy, Jeremy, when you do a good thing and then it turn out into a thing that catch you into hot water, that's this fool.
Oh my
So
God.
it's not a whole, I mean, it's for just over 42 million shares. And the intention was we wanted to recognize the fact that we're not here on our own, and it's because people trust us to refer their
Yeah.
patients to us. So the idea was that we put aside some of the shares to offer to the persons that refer to us. And we started with just in terms of the number of referrals and went down. And we really have a whole lot of doctors that refer to us. And we said, okay, let us focus first on the top 300, thinking that some would take up, some wouldn't take up. Well, it's a good problem to have in that they all want to take
I
up
was
what's
just
reserved
gonna
for
say.
them. But bad problem to have is that people who may not have referred a lot in the in the years and referred a few, which we appreciate every single one, want
Yes.
to know where their reserved pool is. And so the truth of the matter is that we started just based on the amount of referrals that you gave us. So is that really more just to say we appreciate it, we couldn't be here without you.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we have to ask a lot of people to be considered for the general pool and to buy into the general pool. And what we're doing is noting all of those doctors who have been calling for anything in the future to offer. But it really was just based on the number of referrals that we selected the doctors to make an offer to. And that was
Okay. Okay.
the main.
So for those who are on the list that you will have sent to your broker, those persons would have already been notified. So if
Yes,
are
those
you
people
saying
have
if
been
you
contacted in the last 2 days. If they weren't contacted, it would mean that they're not yet on the pool or they're not on the pool. As I said, if you want to continue sending the emails to us so we can take note of them for anything in the future, because clearly, how I look on it, those are people who want to support Apex Radiology,
yes.
and our dynamic marketing team led by Kerry Davis and Sonia Staple, Carwin Brown, they're ready and waiting to hear and to come and visit you and talk to you so we can get more referrals from you too in the future.
There you go. There you go. Great. Great. Thank you for that clarity.
Mm.
And so let's talk a little bit about. I mean, this is natural to inquire about based on our market. Persons have
Sure.
also wondered about the offer price, the subscription price. We try to explain to them that it's an arbitrary number and it's based on number of shares, etc. But
Yes.
maybe let us know what went into that decision and how did you tell us how you got to
Yes,
that share price.
I'm sure, Jeremy, you'd explain to the community that really the price is not a reflection of the value of the company. And it's really just a nominal price. At the time when we were looking at the price, we said, okay, let's benchmark to the competitor that is actually listed on the market. And we looked, and at the time they were trading somewhere in the region of $2.30, $2.50, somewhere around there. And so we said, okay, we thought $2 would be a fair nominal price. It's not linked, as you rightly would have told the community, to the value of the stock. As a matter of fact, we are confident the stock is valued much more than that. So really, there's no I can't say there's a scientific way to come up with the price. The price is the price. And I know people have gotten accustomed to stocks that come out at $1. That doesn't mean that our stock is valid anymore any less. It's just the price, you know.
Okay, fair
And
enough,
we
right? Because it's
I get it by our broker around it as well.
yes, and once you're listed, it's really the investors who will determine how the stock trades anyway. So it really
Correct.
doesn't matter where you start. It's really up to the investors into how that stock will trade afterwards.
And
All
we'll
right,
give
so
them performance. We'll give them performance journey to encourage that the stock price trades
there
upwards.
you go. So we'll actually get to that a little bit. Thank you
All
for that,
right.
though.
Okay.
So use of proceeds, you mentioned a few things that you wanted to accomplish with the funds. The very first thing that I saw, and I wondered, one of the things we thought about when we were doing the review of the financials is whether or not you'd have enough capital to acquire, because it mentions here acquiring property to be identified, which
Right.
signals you have not located one as yet. So can you speak to that property being identified, speak to the new equipment that you plan to get for the Otrius location, and then, of course, we'd have spoken about the interventional procedures already. How do you see the 495 million being split between these three areas? And do you think you have enough capital to accomplish everything that you set out to here?
Okay. All right. So let me start with the second one first. So we want to, in Ocherius, we want to start offering the modality of MRI scans, and we want to start offering mammography. Mammography, we think is something that is well needed when, for example, you're doing a breast ultrasound for the detection of any anomalies there. It's also good to have the opportunity to do a mammogram as well, you know. And so we want to start offering that not only in Ochiers, but also at our Moulins Road location, where we have a lot of average Jamaicans who walk foot, take public transport, and we already have X-ray and ultrasound services, and we think mammography would be a good fit there. So the intention is to order those machines. You know, people marvel at the fact that these machines are not, you don't just go and buy one. They're a little bit, you know, like how you have to order a car sometimes ahead. Well, these machines, depending on what they are, take between 3 and 6 months. MRI machine is about
It's
six
a plan
months.
ahead.
Yes, and the ability or specification based on the kind of scans you want to do, and that could be based on your market and what's happening there in terms of just general health issues. And so we intend to order that once we get that money in our account, and that should be able to the money that we do get should we be successful with our raise. We'll do that, and we will have some left over. Up to the thing now, the issue of the property. The property, we have two things in sight now. We are working towards both of them. We don't know which one will materialize. And the intention there is that at our location that we want to move to our own, we own two of our locations now, we rent two. The one that we want to move in Kingston, which is the largest one, we're able to offer now all of our modalities from that location, but we want to be able to offer more of some of them and to introduce new ones. So we, for example, we have two ultrasound rooms. We want to increase the number of ultrasound rooms because the demand is just there for ultrasounds.
Yes.
Depending on which one of those two materialize, we would need to put some money on the table. Nowadays, with the real estate market being how it is, you have to show that you're serious. So the intention is that from the raise, we'll be able to put some of our money down on the table to show that we're serious. We will need more capital, and for that, we will have to work with our team. So far, we have done and benefited greatly from the expertise of Carl Townsend and the JMB Capital Markets team. And so we're going to go back to them and work with them to figure out the best way to acquire that additional capital that we will need to complete that. And the amount, I won't know what we'll need at this point in time, because if we get a building, one of the things that we're eyeing has a building on it already. If we get that, then it's less outlay than the other one where we have to acquire land and build a building, you know. So it really just depends on what works out for us. So yes, we will need more capital. Shape and form, not quite sure yet. But immediately the proceeds will start working so that investors will see a return from the new modalities offered as soon as June next year.
Okay, because what we were wondering in our review, because we thought, okay, let's say that you find somewhere and you acquire that property, you would likely need to now do renovations so that it's accommodating of your type of business. So that may take a few months as well. So because it mentioned to be identified, how long, so let's say best case scenario for you. Let's say you identify the property. Is it an intention to pay a deposit and simply now convert from rent to mortgage? Or do you maybe plan to buy it or purchase that building outright so that you don't have a mortgage? Like, what are some of the considerations that you have there?
Yeah, well, ideally, we want to look at the best way to get the output and make it make sense for the company. So, getting a mortgage will be increasing the leverage. We don't know if that would be the best way to actually do it. Because, as you said, now our leverage ratio is pretty low.
Yes.
It just really depends, Jeremy. But I can say that it will be driven by what we get, whether it's something with a building on it already. If a building is on it already and it does need major renovation, it doesn't have to be a long time before we have that site up and running, you know.
Okay.
But I don't want to just to speak in a vacuum because it really just depends. But certainly some of the money that we raise will start working for investors immediately through the acquisition of the new machines. And that is something, and then the other amount, our financial year ends in February. So it won't be long before we'll be coming to update the market about what exactly we are doing and where we are at. As I said, because we have the two sites in mind already to choose from, or to see which one materializes first.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that. We really do understand. So what I'll do here, so we're moving over to the financials now to kind of
Sure.
understand some of the things that you mentioned there. So I'm going to
Sure.
share something on the screen which speaks to the breakdown of your revenue.
Mhm.
So you have you've noted or included commentary on your trade receivables. It's an area that we would definitely like to have some more insight on. So based on your revenue and your receivables, you also mentioned a plan and a breakdown. Of course, you had less than 30, less than 60, less than 90. You mentioned a plan to recover, and you did mention in the prospectus that you're expecting a 100% recovery rate in terms of getting all of the monies owed to you. Can you just talk to us about that in light of this revenue breakdown here? Which segment of customer are your receivables mostly with? And just talk to us about that for a little bit. Hopefully that wasn't a too
No, man.
long-winded question.
No, man,
Sorry about that.
I got you. So when persons come in, they either pay cash or if they charge on the credit card or pay with a debit card, then we just call all that cash so we get that money by the next day, right? Otherwise, people will come and pay with their insurance card, either in part or in full, or they will come from the Ministry of Health with a commitment letter or what they call a EHCSD form now, which says that the Ministry of Health commits to pay for this scan for this individual. The last two, insurance and the Ministry of Health, is where we would incur receivables. What you'll find is with insurance companies, a typical timeline to settle is 14 days or 2 weeks. You might have some up to 21 days, and a very few complicated cases that you go back and forth with insurance company. The Ministry of Health and Wellness, the program that they have currently now, the process is a little bit involved without going too much into the trees. We have to do billing. They receive the billing, they review it for the accuracy to ensure we charge the right prices, and then they verify with the hospital that these patient reports were received and the patients were actually seen and the services delivered, and then they pay us based on how they get cash flow from the Ministry of Finance. What we find is that the turnaround time on that initially was very, very long. I mean, extending up to as high as 9 months. We've cut that down significantly, and typically now it should be between 90 and 120 days, but you do sometimes have amounts that are outside of that. How we can manage is that we can reduce the time to our billing, the time that we bill and hand over to them, and we can ensure that the reports are delivered on time so that the diagnosis is delivered to the patient and also that the hospitals can sign off on it. But we do find that sometimes that timeline is impacted just based on, we know how government runs and the disbursement of funds from finance to Ministry of Health, and they do their best. What I can say is that the Permanent Secretary has been very upfront, and he will meet with the providers of the service. And in the last year, you'll see the receivables growing, but it's because our overall number of cases and therefore the value of the revenue has grown. So you will see that the receivables are growing as a function of that. But we're doing better to manage and bring down the aging of the receivables. One thing I can say is that we're committed to ensuring that that is kept at a minimum, especially now I tell people I have to go to an AGM and account for performance to investors are going to want to know, Kisha, when you're collecting the money. But our experience has been, Jermaine, that we collect all of the receivables. So we know we will be paid. As a matter of fact, I mean, the permanent secretary has even gone as far as to write assurances. So even our auditors that say that, yes, we'll be settled. And then by the time the next audit quarter comes around, we do see settlement. So
Okay.
it is a challenge. We have to manage it. I'm not going to say it goes away because it doesn't. We're working at things that we can control and how to influence. And it all boils down to relationship as well, that you work with the hospitals, you work with the people in patient affairs, you work with the people at Ministry of Health to reconcile, and you ensure that what you give them in terms of the products that you're billing is well done so that there are less errors, going forward.
Okay. Fair enough. So that means the bad debt that we saw of about 5 million, that was just because of the amount of time that money was outstanding for. It was
You mean
written
when
off.
you saw the impairment, you mean?
Yes, yes, sorry.
Yeah, so what happens is, I remember on the IFRS, I can't remember the rule number right off the top of my head.
Nine
Yes.
or something like that.
Yes, you have to take a expected credit loss on your portfolio if it is over a certain age. And so the auditors would have worked to say what percentage of that they take as expected credit loss, but then when you actually collect the money, they then write it back, so.
Yes, yes. And your prospectus did mention that, in fairness as well.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, thank you so much. So moving on to another area here, I just have a few more questions for you from our side based on our review, and then we'll take some questions from our
Sure.
community.
Sure.
There's a lot of them that has been coming in, so I'll try to
A lot of questions.
yes, I'll probably skip some of mine, and we'll go straight to what our
I'm impressed. That's how you can read that and get the questions and still keep your train of thought.
it's we have a process down.
Okay.
So there was mention of one of the things that we noted in terms of expenditure for the company, our directors' fees paid. You did mention, of course, the structure is going to be changing. And so we wanted to understand what that new fee structure will look like. And it mentioned being in accordance with industry standard based on size of company, but we're not necessarily sure how that
Sure.
size was quantified. So can you explain that new structure for us?
All right. So then you say you understand the old structure. Basically, it was that our shareholders were essentially our directors, and so when we made profit, that's how they would actually get a return on their investment through the directors' fees. Changing now, should we be successful to a publicly listed company, then any shareholder would benefit through dividends, and you would have seen in the prospectus about our dividend payout policy. So what we'll have for directors is that directors will just be paid pretty standard directors' fees for a company of our size. And I don't feel any way to disclose what it is. If you're an internal director in the company, the fees are in the region of $25,000 per meeting. And if you're an external director, about $40,000 per meeting. If you're the chair, a little bit more at 50,000, and we intend to meet initially monthly, but I think the board will consider whether we change to maybe every other month or so as we get more comfortable just in terms of our reporting, and they feel that they're getting enough information to not meet every month. So it is a modest fee because you have companies that pay more than that. I was on another interview and they asked me if the 25,000 was US. No, because as you can see from our expense ratio, we're managing our expenses so that everybody can benefit through our dividend payout.
Great, great. Thank you. So in terms of that payout, can do you have any idea when the first dividend consideration may come up based on your new financial year?
Why German facing me under pressure, man? Well, we know German. What I would say is that at the end of the financial year in February, that we have to publish our results within a specific time period per the JSE rules. So I am sure that somewhere in between that March and maybe about June, when our results are published and we'll have our AGM, I'm sure that we'll have some declaration of dividends once our numbers are audited.
Great, thank you so much. I have to ask the questions as they come to us. All right.
Definitely. Nowadays, if you're putting on your money to invest, you want to know when you're getting some kind of return. I was telling the team members when I was explaining stocks to them that there was a team member once that I worked with, and she told me that, it's very important because your dividends are like, when you have a chicken and the chicken lay eggs, is your egg money that you sell. And they don't want to sell the stock, which is the whole chicken, unless it's time to sell it.
There you
So you
go.
did.
There, and the truth is, you can't predict price appreciation. So dividends are what would be satisfactory to somebody who is investing for income, for example. So yes,
That's
agree
true.
there.
That's true.
All right, so we're going to ask you just a little bit about your growth and expansion plans. You mentioned looking at potential ways to grow organically and inorganically. You mentioned being open to acquisitions. How is that currently looking? Are you maybe likely to do an acquisition within the next 6 to 12 months? Talk to us about that for a little bit.
Okay, all right. So we can grow through either more locations or more modalities. Right now, if we're talking about locations, we do believe when we look at the country and we look at the aging population, because outside of X-rays, you can't predict when somebody needs an X-ray. Ultrasounds, people need for very many reasons, but most people come when it's associated with some kind of pregnancy, that kind of thing. But you need it for many other reasons. But a lot of the other things you need because you may be getting older, aging, and then you have to have things diagnosed. And so, because of that, we look at the aging population. We believe there's an opportunity for more imaging centers in Mandeville and in Montego Bay. So, if we're looking at expansion, those are the markets that we're looking at. In terms of deepening, as I spoke about the introduction of new modalities at the existing locations, we're looking at MRI and mammography. Outside of that, Jermaine, I would say that we believe that the industry could use some amount of consolidation, and there are a lot of smaller entities that are out there. I can't say we have any targets identified immediately, but I would encourage that if there's anybody who wants to be a piece of a bigger pie, to actually let us know, and we can look at it as a proposal into the new year as we do a strategic plan for our 3-year revision. We will be looking more deliberately at anybody that we want to target. We believe right now, just looking at the size of each entity, what they offer for modalities, and looking at where they are, how many locations we have, we believe that Apex Radial is in the top 3 in the market, and we believe that we could actually grow by acquiring some smaller ones.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. I'm trying to determine in my head if we can create L.E.A.R.N Grow Invest Medical, so we can just be a part of the Apex family. So in terms of
You can be a part, or you just have to act before or on the 28th of December, Jeremy.
that is true. So in terms of your prospectus mentioned, and persons were asking about this who were based in Portmore. You had a Portmore location, but it was previously closed down. Any plans to reopen in Portmore?
Okay, so we do know that patients from Portmore are a big part of our clientele. In the COVID period in 2020, we really were impacted for 2.5 months. Outside that, we grew every other month, but we were impacted for 2.5 months, and those were the months when the government had instituted the no movement days or quarantine in certain communities. And when that happened for St. Catherine, we definitely saw a dip. So we do know we have a lot of patients that come from St. Catherine. I tell the directors that they mustn't feel bad. They were just before their time in Portmore, and perhaps at the time maybe the opening hours and stuff did match with the dormitory type of community that existed there. I can't say that we've identified a location now, and we probably need to look at the model of having a full branch and then maybe having like some satellite locations. But I can't say it's something that we have done yet, and there are no immediate plans to move to Portmore. But I am sure that as we come back, should we be successful with listing and come back to agent, that is something that we will be able to update our shareholders on in a more deliberate manner.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, because it is something just from persons that I know from the area are always concerned about the services that are available within that area as well.
That's
So
true. That's true.
yes, they want to feel like they have all the conveniences that
Close by.
Yeah, exactly. So the last question that I have for you personally from Learn, Grow, Invest would be, what are your plans for expansion regionally? Right. I figure you may have opportunities to provide services maybe for other Caribbean countries, or anything like that that may be of interest to you. Is that something that is on the horizon for Apex?
Well, actually, right now we provide services where people fly in for our services, especially in some of the things that are not offered elsewhere, nuclear medicine, etc. They're flying from Turks and Caicos, Cayman Islands, that kind of thing. So we actually see as a way to expand that there is an opportunity to create some kind of medical tourism
Yeah.
um, um, strategy, and to determine who the patients would look like, what they look like, the value proposition that targets kind of client market. As it relates to branching out and having a physical branch, that's not immediately on the cards, but there may be some kind of partnership as we build out the medical tourism. What I think that we want to do, Germany, is that we want to see the opportunity, want to be deliberate about finding out how we execute, if it's on our own or through a partner, and then go ahead and approach it. We want to ensure that it makes sense. We know what it is that we're offering and what we uniquely bring to the table to make a difference in that market.
Agreed. And very soon you'll have to be accountable to shareholders who will want to know that it's making sense for them as well in terms of the ROI. Okay, awesome.
Definitely.
Yes. So what I'll do, we have quite a number of questions from the chat, so I don't want to leave those persons out. I'll take some of those
Sure.
comments. Elaine is saying that he's very impressed with you. You're to the point, and he hopes that you'll continue to communicate with shareholders going forward in the same manner. So,
Yes. Yes. As Elaine, I actually,
Elaine, yes, Elaine,
Al-
yeah.
Aline, I actually I don't take lightly the fact that when you offer yourself as a public company, you're actually taking people's hard-earned money. And I believe that no matter what the news is, communication is the key. And I believe that there is nothing that we're doing that is rocket science and that everybody can understand it if we explain it. And you go to AGMs, I've had the opportunity in the past to be accountable to shareholders, and you go to AGMs and shareholders give good ideas sometimes too.
Yes, agreed,
So
agreed, 100%. And I can tell you, our shareholder or our community members keep receipts. So there's persons making notes right now. Seriously, seriously,
and, and,
Keisha.
and I'm sure we post this video that somebody can go back to minute number whatever and say, Kisha, at minute
Exactly,
number 47, you said.
exactly, exactly. Trust
And
me,
like we
we
have
it's
to be able
something.
to walk on the street in good conscience enough to make sure.
Exactly. So solution is saying, do you have any backup system in place if there's a power cut, and will it be possible for any renewable energy in the future?
Okay, that's a very good question. So backup systems we don't have at all our locations. We actually are looking in our budget for the new year for the locations that we don't have to put into place. As it relates to renewable energy, we actually, at all of the locations that we're at now, we don't have our own plant per se, Germain. So we would have to actually be in partnership with the other either members of the strata
Mhm.
or the actual owner of the property to put in renewable energy. You have to do a whole business model around it. What would be challenging for us is that really our machines run on what they call three-phase power supply. So the standard solar panels wouldn't necessarily work for all of
Yeah.
our equipment. So we'd have to look and say what really would we be able to continue offering it with the solar, and would it make sense in this way? So we have not yet thought about solar and the benefits thereof, but I'm sure there are some. But for sure, as it comes to the backup power supply for the locations where we're missing it now, we have it in our budget for the new financial year.
Okay, great, great. I have a question here from Dominic. Will you consider a stock price based key performance indicator for top executives to ensure that the stock price remains a priority in the interest of small retail investors?
Boy, German, I want you to answer that question for Dominic because that's not the boy. Our market is not as what would I say is the word? Sometimes share price is driven in our market just based on the market, and And you will find that there are several stocks even right now in the market that are undervalued when you actually look at the key performance indicators for them.
Yeah.
But to be clear, what I can do on behalf of Dominic is that we could have something that we're reporting to our shareholders at the AGM. We actually speak about our stock price and what we're going to do to encourage our stock price to remain, our performance to remain well. So I can say that we could be accountable to talk about and report to our shareholders, but I don't know if just having it on the performance indicator of anybody in the company is going to really make a difference to what happens with the stock price.
Yes, I hope Dominic understands what you're saying and other persons watching, because I do agree with you that there are companies that are performing well and consistently performing, but the stock price is not reflecting that. So to having the stock price itself as a key performance indicator may not be something, I guess, always attainable depending on the stage of the company, how investors, perceive the company, etc. So it is something that may not always be within your control to manage.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And if you see
All
a
right.
stock that's undervalued and you can afford to buy, you buy, because I mean, at some point the market corrects itself,
Exactly. Agreed there. All right, let's keep it moving. Lushand is asking, how do you maintain your equipment? Do you have like a management staff dedicated to maintaining equipment?
Yes, yes. Okay, so we have a maintenance schedule that is consistent, so that we try to preempt the machines actually going down. So our machines are maintained, some of them internally and some of them with third-party service providers, either the persons who bought the machine through or other service providers. And we do have a biomed and IT team of a grand number of 2 people, but we think that's sufficient right now, led by Anthony Grizzle, who Anthony was actually came to us from Meditron, as I think I had mentioned earlier, which was a company of one of our founding shareholders. And Anthony is able to do first level diagnosis for all the machines and then calling the partner that we have contracts with, depending on what the issue is with the machine. And we are
Okay.
one of the few entities that actually have somebody in that role on staff. And so that really helps for a quicker assessment and determination of the next steps. But
Okay.
the real goal is in ensuring that you have a maintenance schedule.
Yes,
You're able
agreed.
to.
All right. So Aline is saying, and guys in the chat, keep the questions coming. What I'll be doing is maybe skipping over some of the questions that might have been answered before. So if you came in a little bit late, feel free. If you don't see your question answered, I encourage you to watch over the video, because we might have covered it before. Because of the number of questions, I'm trying to get through as many relevant ones as possible. So please bear with us in that. So Elaine is saying that he notices that the board is made up of healthcare professionals. Are there any plans to add other members outside of the profession to give some diversity and experience in the business world?
Yeah, that's a great question. So right now we have 3 directors who are not doctors, myself included. We have one who the expertise that she brings is IT and finance. We have one who the expertise that she brings is corporate governance and legal. And then we have myself, who my experience and background is in management, general management, and financial management. The intention is that we have one other person that we have in mind to bring that also financial management and expertise and guidance to the board. We don't think that there's anything else immediately that we are missing when we have those 4 persons on board. But for sure, we will always seek, if it's not through a direct board membership, but through the provision of professional services, we will seek whatever help that we need to ensure the company continues to succeed.
Okay, thank you for that. And Kevon is asking, you only have 4, well, you only have 4 4 locations from in the 19th century. Why not more than only 4 locations? What current
Oh
problems?
boy, kept on, you're hard man. Because St. Anne was added in 2019, and then the other 3, Two of them were added in one in 2016 and one before that. So what you want to do, you want to manage your growth in an industry like this, because
Yeah,
the cost of setup is very capital
exactly.
intensive.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
machines cost millions and millions and millions of dollars, and you don't want to have a location that is actually drawing from another location. You want to ensure that it's either putting something somewhere because it's going to increase the number of scans that you do, patients that you see, because they're not able to access the other locations, and to actually increase your general productivity and output. Right now, as I said earlier, we would be looking at markets that we're not at, or introducing new types of scans modalities in locations that we are. The other areas that we're looking at, I don't think, in case he wasn't here earlier, would be Montego Bay and Mandeville. I can't say we're looking to put any more branches in St. Anne at this point in time, because we just moved to a nice new location at White River North Commercial Complex, which is pretty large and allows us to offer the additional modalities that we want to.
okay. And it's a very important point that you're making, because you have to really assess whether or not the capital that you would have to put in to build out a location, if it's going to be worth it, not just in the short term but the long term. Because ultimately, if it's taking more than it's giving back the business, then again, shareholders may not be happy with the overall profitability of the company if that location can't generate enough revenue. So that's something that you have to think about as you consider the number of locations.
Yes, thanks.
All right. So in terms of, there was a question that we saw, well, there was a section of your prospectus which spoke about risk, and I have to commend you in terms of the detail of the risk that were identified, because one person was like, why are there so many risks? I know we were saying to them that it's actually a good thing that you've identified them, so that they're not unaware of the potential, because there's no risk-free investment, there's no risk-free company. This question though was one of them that we had. What are your backup plans if you would have a radiologist that would decide not to work with you anymore, or you lose key resources or talent in general?
Okay, so in the last 2 years, we've been deliberate around succession planning and also just growing the number of radios that report to us. And so now we are up to 11, which 3 years ago we may have been at about 7. And so the idea is that you want to ensure that there's enough work for the radiologist with on-call services. Now I can envision we may bring on another one or two in the short term to help with the reporting, because besides just from our perspective of having enough, we also have to be mindful of what our commitment is in terms of the turnaround time for reports. And that's something that I can't say we're perfect on. Every now and again, we do fall short of our commitment to deliver. Urgent reports get delivered immediately, but others we tend to deliver within 48 hours. So we want to ensure that happens, because remember, a report is really your doctor knowing that yes or no, something is to look further here or something is not to. So it's important to the care of patients. And so we intend to ensure we have adequate numbers and to go ahead. So right now we have 11. We believe that we need another one or two. And the truth of the matter is, Kevin, if it really becomes a risk, you do have entities that actually just do reporting. They're not associated with any one imaging center, and they do reporting. So we could always rely on that if we actually have a need.
Okay, great. Thank you for that explanation. Yared is asking, would Apex look into training machine technicians and providing repair services industry-wide?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because I can tell the truth that sometimes with the frustration of our service providers, we say, it may be an opportunity to do that as you look at every step along your delivery chain. So the truth is, what we're doing is that any new machine that we buy, we're asking the providers to ensure that Anthony, who I mentioned, and his other team member, Francois, and anybody else that we choose to join that team, have enough skills and are trained to be able to really do some first level defense. If we see that it could be without taking away from their main focus, I think it's something that we would look at. That would really be a game changer, I guess, something out of the box that would make a difference and could help other imaging centers. But right now, we just want to ensure that our team is able to do more in terms of the first level diagnosis of an issue with the machine and determine what we need to do to fix it.
Yeah, I think it could potentially be an opportunity. I don't remember when it was, but we had to take a family member to get some scans, and all we heard was, machine at X place not working, machine not working, machine not working, machine. We're
Yeah.
like, any machine in the country at all working?
Yeah, it's very frustrating when you have somebody I think there, and it's important that, and unfortunately, sometimes you don't have enough experts in Jamaica because the team that is here is stretched thin, so it is an opportunity. It's an opportunity.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. Aussie, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. Is Winchester Medical profitable? The only time I've seen it in the financials was a loss.
Okay, so let me just be clear. It's not Winchester Medical, it's Winchester MRI.
Yes,
Because Winchester Surgical and Medical is a different entity. So based on the financials, the company was not showing a profit. We are going to do our best to determine how we can support that company, because we are a 30% shareholder to turn around. But that company is independently run with their own board. We share a chairman at this point. Our chairman of Image was the chairman of Winchester MRI since this year. So you can see that we have a commitment to ensure that the company gets back on the right track.
Okay, great. And he did clarify that it is Winchester MRI. He just did it after.
Right.
So L.E.A.R.N is asking, well, L.E.A.R.N is making a statement that the competition in Mandeville is really strong. So make sure some due diligence is done for that market before you enter it.
Agreed.
All right, so we have a couple more questions that we're going to try and run through very quickly. I know we're just about at our time, so I'll ask you to allow us a few more minutes to get through what I believe are probably some of the more urgent ones.
Sure.
So there was a mention of about 47,000 scans done overall. Are you...
Last year.
Yes, last year. Mm-hmm. So on average, how many scans are done per day? And what do you expect the number of scans to be for 2023 FY?
Okay, so I'll answer the last question first, because we're projected to end somewhere over 55,000 scans for this year.
Right.
Yeah, and remember now that is driven because we have machine uptime, and we're looking at our booking guidelines to ensure productivity. And we actually even sent a team, so Siemens, who provides machines through their seller in the region, DISS, actually allowed us to send a team to the Dominican Republic, and the team came back. The team was led by one of our radiologists, when Dr. Kurt Gabriel, but our chief radiographer, Nicola Beckon Morgan, who I say is the best in the business. She actually went and she came back very excited about the fact that she saw opportunities of what we could do to work to have patients in and off the beds faster, so that we could even manage our patient turnover, So we are committed to ensuring that we do everything that we can do to increase our productivity in that area.
Okay. So since you're estimating about 55,000 scans, are we expecting to see maybe over $1 billion in revenue since for your first 6 months you're at 5?
Jermaine, I gotta save that until we gotta save something big for the AGM.
Yes, but just for Q3, right? Because Q3 would be very telling. Yeah.
Yes, we're heading, and Q3 performance is strong, and we're headed to big things, with the support of the new persons who are going to invest and believe in the company. We're headed to big things. Remember, if we add modalities, we're adding more scans. If we add on-call services that we have in Otres, we've now started it in Kingston as well. We're going to be adding more scans. So,
great. And I did notice your prospectus mentioned that Q1 is typically your slowest quarter. Mm-hmm. So if you were able to do so well for the first 2 quarters, knowing that Q1 was traditionally your slowest, I think it's heading there. That's 223 million. You'd have averaged about 280 per quarter for the first half. So I think you're there. I think you're at least $1 billion in revenue.
Let's see, Jermaine. Let's see. You're going to invite me back to talk about it.
Definitely, because one thing I do know that persons will ask, because I was mentioning to you briefly before that we do host earnings calls for publicly listed companies. So I'm almost certain there's somebody typing up right now. Jermaine, please let us know when we're going to be meeting with Kisha again. So we're definitely going to try to
Sure,
book
yeah,
that.
man. Accountability is important. So I'll be here. I'll be there if you invite me.
Great. All right, so I'll ask just 3 more questions, and I think we'll wrap up. So, in
You're gonna
terms
have to
of
send me dinner.
listen, yes, yes, it is. Yep. So, someone says here in Centan, only one other service center offers MRI. In which quarter should we expect the purchase of an MRI machine for the Ocherius branch?
All right. Should we be successful with the offer and the transaction will settle for January, we'll make the order at the same time, and it's 4 to 6 months in terms of
Okay.
lead time to actually get it. So I would say May to June for us starting to offer those services.
Okay, great. Thank you. Does the
We have the
company
space and everything already, I should say, Jeremy. So it's just waiting on the machine to get there.
okay. Does the company accept international health insurance? If no, is it a consideration?
Okay, so to be quite transparent, we actually had the first such patient request in this financial year.
Ah,
It takes a little longer for it to settle, and we have to learn to ensure that the pre-qualification thing, 'cause there are different rules around it. It's not as simple as just swiping like I was swipe for the insurance now. We had the first person. The transaction didn't take. It took about 40 days to settle. So we have to be very deliberate
wow.
about how we choose to do that because I mean that's a long turnaround time. We'd be in the region of settling like how MOH settled, you know. So at this point, I can't say we don't, because we did. So we just have to ensure that your company can verify that they cover what you come to do, that kind of thing.
Okay, perfect. All right, so there's a question here that says, with most of your income coming from imaging services, they'd like to know how else you plan to earn in times when there may not be high demand for those services.
Okay, so all of our income comes from imaging services. How we're able to manage earning is that because we have a diversity with offering several modalities, then we are able to earn. So, for example, we saw during COVID that less people are on the road, right? So you had less accidents and less people going out. So X-rays actually went down. But then, you know, what would have gone up a little bit during that time was some ultrasounds because people were making more babies. And CTs went up a little bit more during that time as well. So having more modalities help you to diversify how you earn and therefore minimize your risk of only having one modality, which could be impacted by either something external or you having a machine down, you know. So we diversify our earning through the different modalities that we offer.
Understood. But one of the things that we mentioned on our review is that it's a type of business that you can't necessarily predict. Like you can't say we're gonna have 10,000 of this scan next year, because it's not the kind of thing where you're not likely to have like a repeat customer. I mean, if somebody comes to do a scan and they love the service, it's good turnaround, etc., then they're likely to come back. But it's not something that you can necessarily predict.
No, you
So
only
we
have,
were
yeah, that's correct, Jermaine. So what we do to keep ensuring that the relationship with our referring doctors is very important. The level of care that we give to our patients is very important. And we do have some patients that sadly, because they're impacted by terminal type illnesses, they have to come repeat like every month or every quarter to repeat their things. So we ensure the level of care that we give them
yeah.
is there so that they would want to come back. And we do enjoy a lot of word of mouth because nowadays, when people get a form from their doctor to go to a particular imaging center, they will shop around and they will ask a friend where you got good service. And so the truth is that we do have people who tell their friend, go to this place instead, and we have
Yeah.
benefited from that. So the service, the quality of the reports, the ease of access of our radiologists from the referring doctors, the turnaround time for the reports, all make a difference to the fact of our number of scans growing. And so those are all things that we try to manage in the delivery, but it really can't be predicted per se, you know.
Exactly. Agreed. So there's a question as it relates to your partnership with the Ministry of Health. Is it a contractual agreement that you have with them? What is the scope of that? Because you do have 25% of your revenues being generated from that partnership. how can we expect that to continue? Is it, how is that being managed?
Okay, so I will tell you, Jeremy, that from time memorials, when the company started, Dr. McDonough tells me that the partnership was less formal, but the ministry would give a waiver on the equipment and then say the value of that taxes that they forego should be put against referrals coming from the private sector, from the public sector, and they paid for it that way. It was formalized in 2019 through a program called Extended Healthcare Service Delivery, where their mandate was to
I was trying to figure out what that abbreviation in the prospectus meant. I did a Google. I was like, I can't find this anywhere.
Oh, we didn't explain it. Oops, sorry. So really, what it is that the ministry went out and sought suppliers who would be willing to sign on private practices, and we offer services on credit, as I had described earlier when we were talking about the receivables. And why it's important is because that's a strategy that they had to reduce bedtime per patient and therefore allow the hospitals to free up to have more beds available. So by outsourcing, people can get a quicker diagnosis, and the permanent secretary told us that it's actually reducing the bedtime by 2 point something days. So we see that it's making a difference, And the truth of the matter is that they're always going to need, because the health system will never have enough machines that are always up and working. So if it started 26 years ago, less formal, it's just got more formal recently. Then I don't see it not continuing, but there is a formal contract in place. The contract now renews every 90 days. And the conversation is that, it's just going to keep renewing because the service is needed. The service is needed. As we can see, they do pay. There may be a delay in when they pay, but they do pay.
Yes. And that's just, that's something that you can't control. I think most times as a business, you just really want to ensure that you are going to be paid and not necessarily how long, because there are things that you may not be able to control. So we understand that. So just two more questions. I apologize for this again. They keep coming in. So the first question is, how do you plan to manage your liabilities going forward, and what are you doing to manage costs as you seek to grow?
You mean liabilities, meaning, I get the one about the cost, but
So the specific question was, what are the steps that are in place to reduce your current liabilities? That was how the person phrased it. I'm not sure if they meant liabilities or debt. The person who asked that question, I don't know if you want to clarify. I think they're asking, how do you plan to manage liabilities, and how do you plan to manage expenses? Because your prospectus also mentioned seeking to manage costs, keep costs low, etc. So I just kind of
sure. So if you look at our expense ratio, you'd see that our other expenses, we've been managing them quite well. And
Yes.
That's because we've been doing proactive care of our machines. So we're not waiting on the machines to break down and need parts. We service them regularly. We have also been doing proactive care of our facilities. So we did renovations at all of our facilities in the last 2 years. So we're spending less on just routine maintenance things, because we're doing it. We did it ahead of time to take care of the place, so we don't have to be replacing things because they're breaking down and not working. And then also by engaging our team members, our entire team members. I meet with them once a quarter, and they know everything. They know the number of cases, they know the targets for that, they know the revenue generated by location, they know the cost. And so you find that they are ensuring that we're wise about how we use our supplies and how we save our costs. So really, all costs have grown less than in inflationary rate. If you look at the numbers, and I really have to give that kudos to the team. So our strategy was both to grow in terms of our number of scans, so we could grow our revenues, and to manage our costs so that the expense ratio continues to go down and our efficiency improves. So it really is a team effort, but there are some deliberate strategies to do so.
Thank you so much for that. So are there any considerations? Well, Dominic again is asking, are there any considerations into vertical integrations along the line of pharmaceuticals or lab tests, etc.?
I would say at this point, no, but when I meet to the board about our 3-year strategy, who to tell, it would have to make sense and be something that we feel that we can manage and we can extend ourselves to. Because again, it might be something that we choose to partner with somebody if there's somebody who's best in the business, and would be a complementary service to us. As it relates to the pharmaceuticals, we are trying to figure out some of the things that we use a lot that are expensive.
Yeah.
Something we use called contrast, which is one of our, I can't remember right now if we put it on the imaging or, yeah, I think it's on our imaging supply expense line item. That's something that's impacted by the exchange rate, and how we've been managing it so far is that we've been buying in bulk and managing the inventory. So we have like a lead amount of like about 3 months in store, so that we manage the cost, because you're not buying every day as the cost keeps going up. But we're exploring whether or not we could just import that directly for ourselves, because we're sure that we would cut out the profit margin, and that would also help us to maintain our prices and not have to increase our prices as that input increases.
Great. It sounds like you're already thinking about how to grow the business. I think persons are very, very happy to hear that. I've seen, the comments in our Telegram group as well as persons are watching. So I think people are very happy with what they're hearing so far. Very absolute final question. With
Your
this
third absolute final.
third absolute final
But who is
question.
counting?
Nobody's counting. Thank you so much. So Janelle is saying with a lot of migration of key medical personnel like radiographers and
Yeah.
sonographers, how we fill the vacancy for the different modalities.
Yeah, all right. That's a great question, because that is also a risk in terms of personnel. So what we've
Yes.
done so far, Janelle, is that we have partnered to some extent with the school at UE, because we find that not only through interaction sponsorship of their committee, but also by taking interns and persons that learn. And why I said that earlier, that our chief radiographer is the best in the business, 'cause everybody wants to come and learn with her. She's a hard task master, but when you finish, you're going to learn and be very good at what you do. And the truth of the matter is that we take interns who most of the times after internship end up coming on our team. And we are
Yes.
also training some of our radiographers to become sonographers once they have done very well and shown the tenacity to learn that specialty. We're also looking at some of them who may want to specialize in mammography and that kind of thing. So succession planning and development is a big part of what we focused on. And we're trying to ensure that the entire experience of working at Image Plus Consultants is rewarding, that we pay a fair salary, and the experience that you're learning. Our radiologists are very generous with how they teach. I mentioned some of them earlier, but I have to mention people like Dr. Lewis, who they say he's so gentle and he will show them how to do what, and Dr. Allison. So they're very good at passing on the knowledge. So people feel that yes, they come in, they're earning a salary that is reasonable, fair, and attractive, and they actually are also earning so that they can increase their knowledge and be even more marketable should they choose to go in the future. I'd learned from a lady that I admire a lot, Joan Duncan, several years ago, when she said that some people, this place at your work is the destination. And for some, it's a stepping stone. But for the
Yes.
time that you're there, you must make a difference, So.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Thank you so much for that. I really, really did enjoy this conversation. Thank you so much for being so direct and transparent in your explanations. There are lots of things to like about the company, but of course, we recommend everyone who's watching speak to your licensed financial advisor.
Right.
You do have a fair amount of time. I really did appreciate the time that we got to review the prospectus and not have to rush. So
Right.
we appreciate
We
that.
knew Christmas and everything was there and people would be distracted, and but we thought that it was the right time to go, and we had something attractive that you can use some of your bonus to buy shares and not spend all of it.
Yes, because there's 60,000 public sector workers about to get a payment. So I mean,
Mm.
not a bad time. So thank you
Mhm.
so much, Kisha. I
Thank you.
thought this was great value to our community members. We wish you all the best with the offer. We
Thanks,
will
sir.
be sending you that proposal for further, conversations in terms of,
Sure.
earnings calls, etc. So we
Mhm.
really do hope to see you again.
Yes, man. And thank you for the work you're doing to help the market be educated. And thanks
Yes,
to the community for their time. All
thank you
righty.
so much.
Bye bye.
All
Merry
right.
Christmas when it comes.
Same to you. Happy holidays.
Thanks.
All right, everyone, thank you so much. Hopefully that was of value to you. I think it was. I think a lot of the blanks that we had were filled in. Guys, before I say anything else, I'm going to ask you, can you please like the video? Really, please like the video, regardless of the platform that you're watching on. Take a moment to like the video. It helps us grow. It tells the algorithm that this is valuable to you. If you've stayed here for the 80 minutes that we've been on, please like the video. All right. Okay. So I think everything that we wanted to ask was asked in some way, shape, or form. Hopefully, some of you appreciated that I didn't necessarily ask your questions in the same way you sent it to me, but I tried to get through all of them. For persons who thought I would have missed their question or they didn't think it was answered, just go through and watch the video first to ensure that it was not covered before. And then what we can do is kind of collate the questions. I can send it to the team and they can maybe answer it on the next earnings call or something like that. It's something that we're going to try to get in as many as we can. So thank you guys so much. I really hope that you enjoy your holidays. Be sure to subscribe to our mailing list. We send out emails at least maybe once every 2 weeks. What we've noticed is that as we send out more emails, the open rate actually decreases. So we haven't been sending you weekly emails anymore because we realize that some of you aren't opening them. So we don't necessarily want to be spamming your inbox. So what we try to do now is send one email. So for example, we sent out an email on Monday to tell you about all 3 videos that we were doing today. So hopefully you got that. If you're not subscribed to our mailing list, be sure to do that now. The link is in the description of this video. If you missed the prospectus review and the financials review, be sure to check that out. I think if you watch all 3 videos, you'll get a good understanding of this offer and the opportunity that it presents. It's for you now to determine with your financial advisor how best to capitalize on the opportunity. We don't anymore cover the basis of allotment, videos, etc. We're not sure that video was providing value for everyone based on how those videos were being viewed. If you want us to cover that, let me know in the comments below the video. But we never thought that would necessarily be of value to you. That's why we don't do that anymore. And then what we try to do is focus on, as I said, things like the earnings calls, etc., to give you more value, because there are a few persons in the space that cover similar content. And what we want to do is provide you with value in terms of what we're covering. Content creation does take a fair amount of time. I hope you guys understand that. So we don't want to be repetitive in terms of what we cover. So we try to focus on things that will provide the best value. So, you know, the CEO series is there. The prospectus reviews are there. We're going to have our stocks to watch in January. Things like that we believe will help you in terms of all your other research to make a good investment decision. So on behalf of Renee and I, we wish you guys a great holiday, and we will be seeing you. Well, what we will be doing is putting through some of the videos from the Grow Your Wealth conference. We'll be releasing those as independent videos, so you can look out for that over the next couple of weeks. We're not expecting any more offers for this year. So, you know, I think we'll probably see you at our first CEO interview in January. I won't release who that will be as yet, but we have quite a number of interviews scheduled for next year. So, yep. All right, let me take a couple of comments here before I go. So Kevin, I think you need to value this company and show persons how you actually do it step by step. So Kevin, that is something that we've thought about. But again, I'm not necessarily sure if persons will be able to follow, right? So we're trying to build up to that. That is something that I know will be valuable for maybe the more experienced investors, but I'm not sure the new persons, beginners would be able to really understand it well. So that's why we haven't covered it yet. So we're laying the foundation with some of our other videos first, but it is something on our roadmap. So thank you for that feedback, though. I definitely agree with you. So Lucian is saying Merry Christmas to LGI and the community. Happy New Year. Same to you and your family as well. So valuing this company would be a good example. I agree. So what you should look out for are the broker analysis which will value the company. Of course, hopefully we see more than one, because you hopefully should have at least 2 or 3 to be able to compare. But again, because the brokers do it, we don't necessarily feel it necessary to do it as well, because again, that would be repetitive since they do a good overview of it. So because the fact that, Learn, Grow, Invest is a 2-person team, we don't necessarily want to be doing things that are being done already, because that wouldn't necessarily be providing additional value. Meaning, let's say we do that valuation video, how many persons will actually watch that video? Because for us, return on investment is views, right? If we put out content, how many persons will actually want to watch that content, etc., is what we're thinking about. So hopefully that helps in understanding why we don't do that currently, but it is something that we have really, really considered, and to see whether or not it would make sense, right? Thank you guys so much. Really hope you have just a great rest of year. Take care.
Learning is the key to successful investing. And who doesn't want to invest in some way?
Here at L.E.A.R.N Grow Invest, we focus on financial education, all with the aim of sharing our knowledge on personal finance, investing, and building wealth. We do this on the foundation of our faith in God.
If a more holistic approach is what you need, check out our Grow Faith-based financial coaching program.
Find out more about us at learngrowinvestclub.com
and follow us on all social media platforms